My name is Isabella Hart, but most people call me Izzy. I'm 32 years old, and if you had asked me 3 years ago what I believed about love, I would have told you it was worth every sacrifice. That belief nearly broke me, but it also shaped the woman I am now. Looking back, it's strange how something so fragile can feel so unshakable when you're inside it. My story starts, as so many do these days, on a screen. I met Mark online, tucked away behind carefully chosen profile pictures and witty messages. He worked in marketing in a city a few states away, the kind of man who wore charm like a tailored suit. I lived on the coast, steady in my tech job, a little quieter, a little more grounded. It began innocently, quick chats about indie films, hiking trails, the books we both swore changed our lives. But it grew fast, intense, like sparks racing through dry wood. Within months, Mark and I were exclusive. Long distance wasn't convenient, but I told myself love was worth crossing any distance. And so I became the one who crossed it. Every other weekend, I drove 8 hours through flat highways and stormy skies, arriving exhausted but thrilled just to fall asleep next to him. When flights were within budget, I booked them. I sent him surprise deliveries of his favorite dark roast coffee beans or that obscure sci-fi novel he once mentioned in passing. The truth is, I was all in. I wanted him to feel chosen, even when distance made us question if we belonged together. One night stands out in my memory. I had driven through a thunderstorm, the kind where the wipers can't keep up. My hands clenched around the steering wheel, my heartbeat synced with the thunder. I showed up at his door soaked, clutching takeout from that little Thai restaurant he loved. He laughed when he saw me dripping in the hallway. "Izzy, you're crazy," he said, pulling me inside. We ate noodles curled up on the couch, lightning flashing against the blinds. Later, he pressed his forehead against mine and whispered, "You're my rock. Don't ever doubt that." And I didn't. I believed him. I believed us. But love, when it begins to rot, never announces itself loudly at first. It creeps in subtly, hidden in small moments. At first, it was the excuses. "Work's too stressful this week, Izzy. Let's reschedule." "I just need some time to recharge. You know how I am." Canceled plans piled up like unread messages, and I brushed them off. Everyone needs space sometimes, right? Then came the social media posts. Photos of Mark with a group of friends from his hiking club, captions like, "Life's too short for the ordinary," or "Sometimes you outgrow the familiar." His smile in those photos seemed brighter than when we were together, as though someone else was holding the camera. I tried not to let the unease swallow me, but deep down it gnawed at me. Why was I always the one initiating? Why did our late-night calls feel like I was dragging words out of him? I told myself it was the distance, the natural wear and tear of long-distance love. Still, late at night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my quiet apartment, whispering questions into the dark. Am I enough? Or am I just convenient? And then came the name. He started talking about a new friend, Lena, a fellow hiker, always planning spontaneous trips. His voice lit up when he mentioned her. "She's such a free spirit," he said once, almost too casually. At first, I brushed it aside. I trusted him. But then I saw the photo. The two of them on a mountain peak, arms slung around each other, the caption reading, "Living on the edge with the best adventure buddy." Her comment section was filled with hearts and fire emojis from his friends. My stomach twisted. I confronted him gently over text, trying not to sound jealous. "Hey, that photo with Lena, are you two?" He laughed it off. "Izzy, don't be paranoid. Distance makes you overthink things. She's just a friend." But his words didn't soothe me. They cut. Because I wasn't paranoid. I was noticing the cracks in the foundation I had been patching over for months. I kept sacrificing, kept planning our next visit, kept believing. Because that's what love is supposed to be, right? Steadfast, patient, enduring. But a voice inside me whispered, "Trouble is already here." I didn't know then how close I was to hearing the words that would shatter it all. Izzy's voice falters here, heavy with foreshadowing. She hints at the betrayal to come, but leaves the listener with a question. What happens when you give everything, and it still isn't enough? I should have seen it coming. In hindsight, the warning signs weren't whispers. They were sirens. But when you love someone, you turn sirens into background noise. Mark grew distant in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. Calls that used to stretch for hours dwindled to minutes. He sounded distracted, irritated, always too busy to talk. When I asked if everything was okay, he sighed and said, "You're overthinking, Izzy. Work's just draining me." Yet when I scrolled through his social media, he didn't look drained. He looked alive. There was Lena again, arms raised on a cliff's edge, laughing with the wind in her hair, Mark beside her, his eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. The captions told their own story. Adventure is oxygen. Find the people who make you feel infinite. And I wasn't in any of those photos. I tried to ignore it, but something inside me started to crumble. One night, I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through his feed until the glow of the phone blurred my vision. My dinner had gone cold, uneaten. I whispered to myself, what am I to him now? A layover between flights? A safety net? The night the truth came, it was a Tuesday, ordinary in every way, until my phone lit up with his name. My heart leapt the way it always had, stupidly hopeful. Hey, I answered, smiling, though the smile didn't reach my eyes. His tone was off, detached, almost rehearsed. Izzy, we need to talk. My stomach tightened. Okay, what's going on? You sound serious. There was a pause, the kind where you know the next words will rearrange your life. I've been thinking a lot, he began. The distance, it's made me realize some things. You're amazing, Izzy. Reliable, stable, but you're not enough for me anymore. The words hit like a punch to the ribs. Not enough. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. Not enough? What does that even mean? He sighed, as if I was being difficult. Come on, Izzy. You have to admit, our relationship has become predictable. Weekend visits, the same routines. Lena. She showed me what real spontaneity feels like. She makes me feel alive. With you, it feels like an obligation sometimes. The floor tilted under me. Obligation. After all the storms I'd driven through, the money I'd sent when he was short on rent, the sacrifices I'd made to keep us connected, this was what I'd become. So you're cheating on me, I said flatly, my voice steadier than I felt. It's not cheating if I'm ending things now, he snapped back, defensive. Yeah, we crossed the line physically, but only recently. Emotionally, it's been fading with us for a while. Don't make this more dramatic than it is. I'm being honest here. You deserve someone who matches your energy. The safe, homebody vibe. Safe, homebody? He spoke the words like curses. Meanwhile, Lena was his upgrade, his adrenaline rush. I wanted to scream, to beg, to demand how he could discard me so casually. But something inside me hardened. All the memories of sacrifice, all the moments I believed his promises, they stacked like bricks until they built a wall between us. Okay, I said, just that. He sounded almost disappointed. That's it? You're not going to fight for us? I swallowed the lump in my throat. If this is how you feel, then we're done. A sharp exhale on his end, a huff of arrogance. Well, all right then. I guess that's mature of you. Take care, Izzy. Maybe we'll catch up someday as friends. Don't count on it, I replied, and hung up. The silence in my apartment pressed against my ears, heavy and merciless. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone across the room. I just sat there, staring at the blank screen, letting the weight of it sink in. Not enough. 2 words that echoed like a curse. I had built my life around him, stitched my routines to his absence, sacrificed without complaint, and now I was cast aside for someone who promised him freedom. That night, lying awake in the dark, I didn't text him, didn't call back, didn't beg. Instead, I did the only thing that kept me sane. I blocked his number, unfollowed his accounts, and deleted every photo. In one evening, I erased the evidence of our love, at least the digital proof. The memories, however, remained like scars under the skin. As I drifted in and out of restless sleep, one thought repeated itself like a mantra. No more chasing. No more proving my worth to someone who can't see it. Little did I know, the storm he had chosen was about to sweep him away and leave me standing, stronger than I'd ever been. The days after that call were a blur, like living underwater. Everything sounded muffled, every movement heavy. I didn't drown myself in wine or rant endlessly to friends. Instead, I sat with the silence, the confusion, the anger simmering beneath my skin. I kept replaying his words in my head. You're not enough. They clung to me like a second skin. Sometimes I whispered them aloud, just to hear how absurd they sounded. Not enough. For a man who couldn't even commit to a phone call. Not enough. For someone who measured love by adrenaline and hashtags. It felt cruel. It was cruel. But strangely, the cruelty clarified things. The first thing I did was practical. I canceled the plane tickets I'd bought for our next weekend together. The airline refunded me a good chunk of change, And instead of staring at that money like a reminder of wasted plans, I used it for something I hadn't done in years. I invested in myself. A gym membership. Every morning, I dragged myself out of bed, laced up my shoes, and ran by the ocean. At first, it was clumsy, my lungs burning, my legs begging to stop. But the rhythm became addictive. The pounding of my feet on the pavement was like an exorcism, each step hammering his voice out of my head. Work, too, became a lifeline. For years, I'd turned down opportunities because they would have taken me farther from him. A promotion I once passed up was back on the table. This time, I said yes. Within weeks, I had more pay, more respect, and a new fire in me. For the first time in a long time, my world wasn't built around Mark. It was built around me. But the healing wasn't all practical. It was deeply emotional, too. Nights were the hardest. I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos I swore I'd deleted, staring at his smile that no longer belonged to me. Sometimes the grief hit so hard I'd curl up on the couch, clutching a pillow like a lifeline. And yet, beneath the grief, something else was growing. Resolve. I started taking solo hikes, trails I once promised we'd do together. There was one weekend I climbed a trail just outside the city. The view stretched endlessly, the horizon blurring into sky. I set up camp alone, cooked a simple meal over a tiny burner, and lay on my back beneath the stars. The silence that once suffocated me now soothed me. "This pain is my turning point," I whispered to the night. The words felt solid, like stones pressed into the earth. Still, my heart wasn't done questioning itself. Was I boring, predictable? Did the distance excuse his betrayal? His voice lingered like a ghost, smug and self-justified. But slowly, clarity seeped in. This wasn't about me being lacking. This was about him being selfish. His choices, his betrayal, that was on him. Every run, every new skill, every night I chose solitude over desperation. I rebuilt myself brick by brick. And here's the irony. While I was learning to stand taller, whispers of Mark's unraveling were already beginning. Mutual friends mentioned him in passing, not with admiration but with hesitation. "He and Lena, they're always off on some scheme," one said vaguely. Another sighed. "It doesn't look stable." I didn't dig. I didn't need to. But a small, quiet part of me wondered, how long can a relationship built on betrayal really last? I didn't know it then, but karma was already lacing up its shoes, preparing to run him down. For now, I focused on breathing, on running, on living without apology. The girl who had once driven through storms just to be by his side was gone. In her place, a woman was rising, scarred, yes, but unbowed. And that was only the beginning. 3 months after the breakup, my phone buzzed with a message from an old mutual friend. At first, I almost ignored it. Most of those connections had frayed the second Mark and I split. But curiosity tugged at me. The message was casual, almost fishing. "Hey, Izzy, have you heard about Mark and Lena?" I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, that night, I poured myself a glass of wine and, against my better judgment, checked social media through a burner account. And there it was. The carefully curated adventure life Mark had flaunted was unraveling like a loose thread. At first, it was whispers. Posts deleted, captions changed. Then came the news articles. Lena wasn't just a free spirit. She was a scam artist, running fake investment schemes for luxury hiking retreats that never existed. She promised big returns, took people's money, and vanished. And Mark? He was right in the middle of it. Whether out of love, ignorance, or greed, he'd invested thousands. He had sung her praises, traveled with her, posed for photos like he'd found salvation. But when the cops closed in, Lena vanished, leaving him bankrupt, humiliated, and very much alone. I stared at the screen, half in shock, half in awe. The man who told me I wasn't enough had gambled everything for someone who turned out to be smoke and mirrors. And there I was, in my tidy apartment, my promotion secured, my muscles stronger from morning runs, my lungs fuller of ocean air. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. Mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't gloat. I didn't text him, didn't screenshot the headlines to friends. I simply closed the laptop and sat in the quiet. Because sometimes justice doesn't need applause. It just needs to be witnessed. Meanwhile, my own world kept expanding. I booked a solo trip to a mountain town Mark and I once promised we'd explore together. Hiking alone, I felt freer than I ever had by his side. Every step up the trail was a reclaiming, a declaration that I could carry my own weight. One night I camped by a lake, the water still as glass. I wrote in my journal by lantern light, "Some debts life collects without us lifting a finger." It wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. Friends noticed the change in me. "You're glowing," one coworker said during lunch. Another teased, "Promotion, muscles, solo trips. Is there anything you can't do?" I smiled, but the truth was more complicated. Healing wasn't linear. There were still nights the silence echoed too loud, still moments his words crawled back into my head. Not enough. But now, those words fueled me. They pushed me to prove, to myself, not to him, that I was more than enough. And as Mark's world crumbled, mine quietly thrived. The balance had shifted. He had chosen chaos. I had chosen myself. And life, it seemed, was taking sides. But as much as karma had done its work, the story wasn't over. Because men like Mark rarely disappear quietly. And I had no idea just how desperate he would become. It started small, like a faint knock on a door I'd already locked. A text from an unknown number. "Izzy, it's me. Can we talk? I messed up." I deleted it. A week later, a voicemail. His voice was shaky, stripped of the arrogance I remembered. "Izzy, please. Lena wasn't who I thought. She lied to everyone, scammed me. I lost everything. I know I hurt you, but you were the best thing I ever had. Please, just give me a chance to explain." I listened once, then hit delete, but he didn't stop. More texts trickled in. "We had something real. You always understood me. Don't throw it all away because of one mistake." One mistake. That's what he called betraying me, belittling me, replacing me. When his words failed, he recruited others. First came his mother. She called me one evening, her voice sharp, clipped. "Isabella, this is Margaret. How dare you ignore Mark when he's suffering like this? After everything he put up with during that long-distance nonsense, you owe him some compassion. He's family to you still. Pick up the phone and be there for him like a decent woman should." I didn't let her finish. I hung up and blocked her number. Then came Emily, the old mutual friend who always had a flair for drama. She texted, "Izzy, Mark's wrecked. Lena used him and left him with nothing. He keeps saying you were the one. Just hear him out for old time's sake." I didn't reply. But Mark wasn't done. One afternoon, while I was at work, reception buzzed me. "There's a man here asking for you. Says his name is Mark." My stomach dropped. For a moment, I considered sending him away. But curiosity got the better of me. I told them to let him wait in a conference room, with the door open, witnesses nearby. When I walked in, the sight nearly stopped me. The Mark I had known, the polished, confident man with tailored shirts and easy charm, was gone. In his place was someone slouched, hair unkempt, eyes rimmed red. His hands shook slightly as he stood. "Izzy," he breathed, relief flooding his voice. "Thank God. I drove all night to get here." I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "What do you want, Mark?" He stepped closer, desperation etched across his face. "I'm sorry. So sorry. Lena was a mistake. She promised me the world, and I fell for it. She took everything. My money, my reputation. I'm crashing with friends. Can't pay rent. Work fired me because I couldn't focus. I see now. You were the real thing. Stable, reliable. I need you. We can start over. I'll move here. I'll do whatever it takes." His words echoed cruelly familiar. The same stability he once mocked was now a lifeline he begged for. "This isn't my problem," I said evenly. He flinched as though I'd struck him. "But I didn't know. I thought she was different. Please, Izzy, just until I get back on my feet. For us." I shook my head. "No, we ended the moment you decided I wasn't enough." His face twisted, desperation souring into anger. "You're being cruel. After everything? After all we shared? I thought you cared about me." "I did," I said. My voice was calm, steady, past tense. Silence stretched between us. I turned toward the door. "Leave now, or I'll have security escort you." His eyes burned with fury. "You're cold. Different. What happened to the Izzy who drove through storms just to see me?" "She learned," I replied, meeting his gaze. "She learned from you." I walked out, leaving him standing there, a shadow of the man he once pretended to be. That night, my voicemail filled with angry messages, his true colors flashing through the cracks of his desperation. "You heartless woman, ignoring me like I'm nothing. You'll regret this. I gave you the best years of my life. Fine. Rot alone in your boring life. See if anyone else wants you." I deleted them all, because what he didn't understand, and never would, was that I wasn't rotting. I was blooming. and no storm he brought to my doorstep could uproot me again. 6 months after the breakup, I thought I'd seen the last of him. I was wrong. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I'd slipped into my favorite coffee shop near the office, the kind of place where the air smelled of cinnamon and the baristas knew my order before I spoke. I stood at the counter, waiting for my latte, when a voice from behind me froze my spine. "Izzy?" I turned, and there he was. Mark. He wasn't the sharp, confident man I'd first fallen for. He looked smaller somehow. Clothes wrinkled, eyes hollow, a desperate smile pasted on like glue. "Fancy meeting you here," he said, sliding into the seat at my table without asking. I stayed standing, cup in hand. "What do you want, Mark?" He leaned forward, trying to recapture that old charm. "Just a conversation. That's all. No drama, no fighting." Before I could answer, I noticed someone a few tables over. Emily, our mutual friend, sipping her latte, eyes flicking between us with thinly veiled curiosity. Fate, it seemed, wanted a witness. Mark lowered his voice, words tumbling out in a rush. "Izzy, I've hit rock bottom. Lena's in jail. Fraud charges, the whole thing. I'm drowning in debt. I've got no job, no one to turn to. But seeing you now, it reminds me of what I lost. You were solid, you were real. I was stupid to say you weren't enough. Let's try again. I'll change. I'll move here. Be the partner you deserved all along." I studied him, and for a fleeting second, the old ache twisted in my chest. The man I once loved was right in front of me, broken, pleading. But then I remembered the thunderstorm drive, the canceled plans, the phone call where he declared I wasn't enough, the smirk in his voice when he chose Lena over me. I set my cup down, my voice calm, firm. "Mark, you taught me something valuable. My worth isn't tied to fixing someone else's chaos. You made your choice, and I made mine. I built a life without you, a better one. You're just a lesson now." His face crumpled. "But I need you. Don't you care at all?" I shook my head. "I don't, not anymore." His eyes narrowed, anger flickering. "You've changed. You're cold. What happened to the Izzy who drove hours just to be with me?" "She grew up," I said simply. "She learned that love isn't meant to be begged for." I stood, slinging my bag over my shoulder. Emily caught my eye, mouthing, "Good for you." Without another word, I walked out into the afternoon sun. The air felt different, brighter, as though the weight of his presence had lifted from my shoulders for good. That night, his final texts came in, rambling, desperate, venomous. I blocked them all, one by one, until silence returned. And for the first time in years, the silence wasn't heavy. It was freedom. I sit here now, telling this story not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because sometimes the people who break you are the ones who show you what you're truly made of. So if you're listening, holding on to someone who makes you question your worth, let go. Trust the silence. Trust yourself. And let karma do its work. It's because the girl who once drove through storms for a man who didn't value her, she now